under the first bridge on our way, which is called very simply the Red Bridge. The bridges across Moika River, and we are now on the Moika River, they are painted different colors. And this, you see the red color, that's why the Red Bridge. Again, fixed it under the bridge. So we start our river tour, boat tour, and you will have the opportunity to see the city from the city was originally planned. Can you hear me? Yes. Wanted everybody to go by water, and actually even embankments were closer to their houses. There was the opportunity to go from the boat straight to the doors of the house. Later the embankments were made bigger. They were made to really travel by boat. It was not very convenient. If you look to your right, you can see the university, St. Petersburg Pedagogical University. Pedagogical are many buildings occupied originally in the 18th century. In this building there was the foster house, well, the house for the kids left by the parents. Yeah, so the orphanage. And quite often ladies, the peasant ladies, they left their children not just because they didn't love them or whatever, but because those orphans, they were free people. You know, in the previous centuries, Russian people, they were like slaves. The servants, the peasants, and if you were born a peasant, you were the real origin of the orphans. And that's why they were considered to be free people. So when sometimes mothers wanted their kids to be free, they left. You can actually see the symbol of the orphanage over the main gate. This bird feeding its Moika River. The Moika River is about personal boat, like to enjoy the weather, to enjoy boating. On some rivers you will see the ramp, and it means that speaking about some buildings, you can see a beautiful Stroganov Palace to your right, the pale pink building with white columns. A Russian family, Stroganov family, was very rich. It was built by Rastrelli, the imperial architect, the same architect who built the imperial palaces. They often had big parties in that palace where they invited almost all the visitors. Huge tables were laid out for everybody, so they were very generous. And we are approaching with you the Green Bridge, the Nevsky Prospect. It is ahead of us, occupied by the Russian Museum now. We have several buildings that belong to Russian Museum, so different pieces of Russian art. So don't stand up under the bridges, sit down, don't stand up. So we have passed, we are approaching the central part. Now it's the place to live. And there were the palaces, the hotels, this reddish building, for example, to your right, where many Russian famous people used to live. For example, Alexander Pushkin, who, when he was young, didn't have his own apartment in St. Petersburg. When he came here, he stayed in this hotel. But it is not a hotel anymore. Most of the palaces and mansions after revolution were turned into apartment houses. They were divided into apartments. Apartments had many rooms, and usually one room was given for one family. That's how communal apartments appeared. Communal apartment means that big apartment with 5, 10 rooms, and each family had one room, and they shared the kitchen and bathroom. Most of the buildings that we passed, they still are for living here. People live there. Well, in the apartments where their parents. And speaking about elevators, originally they were not planned, but in many buildings from the inner yard, the outer elevators were constructed. I mean the outside elevator. Part of the wall, it was connected to the part of the wall, the doors were cut, and that's how it worked. And we are approaching to one of the longest bridges, and the bridge which is called a choir bridge, because nearby there were the royal choirs. It's ahead of us. It is about 76 meters long. It looks like a long tunnel, so get ready. I hope you are not claustrophobic. So this bridge connects the royal choirs that were to your right with the palace square that was to the left. And the yellow building to your left, very long one that we are passing, used to belong to the General Staff. It was called General Staff Building. Now it was given to the Hermitage, and they're planning to have part of the collection there also. Please sit down. They ask to sit down under the bridges. So we have passed the wire bridge, and in this area we have many beautiful buildings. Here, some of them are quite significant. Corner Green building used to belong to Arukchev, very important political leader of the first part of the year 19th century. A little bit further to your right, you can see the grey building ahead, and after the grey building there is the yellow one, where we have the Memorial Museum of Alexander Pushkin. There is the apartment where he lived and where he died. Quite low bridges, again please sit down. So we are now in one of the shortest canals in St. Petersburg. It is only 220 meters long, and it is called the Winter Canal. It was called so because it is near the Winter Palace. Yeah, that's why the Winter Canal. And it has three bridges across this canal. We have passed the youngest bridge that was constructed in the 20th century. The bridge ahead of us is the 19th century construction, and the last one on the way will be the 18th century, the oldest. Added to all other buildings in the middle of the 19th century. And ahead of us we can see the arch that connects the Hermitage to the Hermitage Theatre. The guards didn't need to go outside to go to the performance. They could go through this arch. And to your right, the pale green building, this is the building of the Hermitage Opera and Ballet Theatre, which is still functioning as a theatre. And the oldest bridge on our way, which dates back to the first part of the 18th century. So we have come to the Neva River and the place which we call the Water Square, and the main square. You can see now what the ships saw that came to the port. Do you remember the two columns to your left? and the lighthouses and the exchange building in front, and the big ramp where the ships usually came and where they stayed. And you are along there. Fortress, Petersburg fortress, with the beach there. Sandy, nice sandy beach you can see to your left, and a beautiful view to the fortress. And to the right you can see the palace in Petersburg with the different eyes you see from the water. Pale green building. This is theater, opera and ballet theater. It was designed by Florenzi at the second part of the 18th century. Along the embankment, as I told you, they have the palaces that belong to Grand Duke. The brownish building with these arches at the entrance. This building belongs to Grand Duke Vladimir, and now this is the headquarters of St. Petersburg Scientific Society. To the right you can see this brownish building. Also to the right and ahead you can see pale grey building, which is also very richly decorated, and it used to belong to Grand Duke Michael. Here, so all of them were members of the royal family. To your left you can see Petersburg fortress, and also to the Never, beautifully decorated entrance a little bit ahead, shows us the Never gate. They are also nicknamed the Death Gate, because through that gate the prisoners, those who were under their court in Petersburg fortress, when they were executed, when they were sentenced to, well, being in prison or to death, they were brought through that gate and then by boat to the ocean. Never, as I told you, is a full-watered river, and it is still an important trading route. This river is navigable, and well, big ships go here and there, but you can see all of the bridges are very low. Yeah, it's impossible for a big ship to go under it. That's why all the bridges are, and usually from about 1 a.m. up to 6 a.m. the bridges are drawn, so they are separated. And it's a very difficult time for the citizens, because we can't get from one part of the city to another, which is very high. But it is far, far from the center in the outskirts. But if you forgot about the time, which happens often in summer when we have white nights, and realize that it is more than 1 a.m. again, near and for about half an hour, and then it is drawn again up to very late, up to very early, I mean up to about 6 a.m. We have even a joke that when you come at night at the embankment, see the drawbridges, and see the person who is not enjoying the view, who is not saying wow how beautiful, but the person who is cursing, who is very unhappy, it means he's a native citizen who just forgot about the time. And it's actually a good excuse for husband and wife, so like, sorry, I forgot about the bridges, yeah, I can't come back. So we are slowly going along the palace embankment, and you can now see very well the marble palace to your right, story building, with the 2 upper stories decorated with marble. It was called Marble Palace, and it was a gift from Catherine II to her lover, Georgy Orlov, who was one of the most influential officers in the army and who helped Catherine to ascend the throne. You know that Catherine the Great, she was not Russian by blood, she was a German princess who arrived to Russia to marry Russian Prince Peter III. Well, just to clear up the situation with the who after who in the 18th century in your head, let me explain. After Peter the Great, after his death, there were no straight male heirs because his only son from the first marriage was killed or died, and from the second marriage he had only 2 daughters. So after he died, for a while, for 2 years, his wife was on the throne, Catherine I, a grandson. So his son Alexei died, but he was married and he had 1 son also. Also Peter II. So young boy who was 11 years old entered Russian throne. But he was a weak boy, and in 3 years he died. And that's again the problem. No boys, no male heirs left anymore. Well, that's why for a while Peter's niece, Anna, his niece, sister of his brother, who died long ago, ascended Russian throne. She was the oldest, and she reigned Russia for 10 years. From his second marriage, Elizabeth ascended the throne. Elizabeth was never married, and she had no, her sister's name was also Anna. Her sister was married, and she had 1 son. Her sister was married to a German prince, so her son was grown up in Germany. Elizabeth, understood that she needed somebody to follow her. That's why she invited her nephew, son of her sister, Peter III, we call him, to live in Russia and to follow her after her death. So this young man, who was 14 when he came to Russia, was forced to be married, because when he was about 15 or 16, teenagers, yes, they were married, and they, first they had good relationships, but then they understood that they didn't love each other. They were not close. They have different interests. They were never. They had 1 son, but they lived separately and had their own lovers. When Elizabeth, after 20 years of reign, died in 1760, she was followed by Peter III, that nephew, son of her sister. But Peter III, here, his politics was not good enough, was not wise, and he made many stupid mistakes. And the army, the officers, didn't like